I was not able to get a copy of your book ahead of time, so we're just going to have to simply, I'll just simply be question and answer thing today. So anyway, we're glad you're here. Now tell us, besides being from Puerto Rico and living down near Provo, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Let me just give you a little background on why we ended up out here. We joined the LDS Church in 1980 down in Puerto Rico. We were there for about 2 years, and we had a hurricane. If I remember right, it was Hurricane David in 1979 that destroyed our house.
Oh, dear.
It's really hard to start from scratch over there. My dad was actually in the hospital for about a year, and he actually gotten out. And we had a check, and my parents decided, well, we can't start over here. Let's move to Utah. And we have already talked to several missionaries from there. And that's how we just basically, we didn't have anything at the time because the hurricane took everything that we had. We went to Sears, got some duffel bags, got a few sets of clothing, and then bought tickets, and then got to Dallas. And from Dallas, took a bus to Salt Lake, and then from Salt Lake, we drove down to St. George, and that's how we ended up here in Utah.
Okay, great. And how do you like living out in the great American West?
Actually, I love it. It's what's interesting is the way that I think. It's very similar to the people who live here in this side of the United States. I've been told quite a few times, and some people now laugh at this, that I make a very bad Puerto Rican. And I can see why now that I'm growing up, because I was only like maybe 15 when we moved down here, and I identify a lot. The way I think is very similar to the people out here in the West.
Okay, great. And, I would say most Puerto Ricans probably, when they come to the mainland U.S., probably end up in New York, some places like that, right?
That's correct. And there's a story behind that. There's in the 1940s, there was a big migration. A lot of the people ended up actually in New York. I still have family out in the Bronx and Queens. I haven't visited them out there, but my mom talks about it. My mom's been out there quite a bit. But, yeah, that's where most of the people end up. But now there's actually all over the place, even Puerto Ricans up in Alaska.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they are. I mean, they are Americans after all. So,
that's right.
And now, of course, that you're here and working for a living, I imagine you have your own family, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And now somehow, and you're going to have to kind of fill in the blanks on this thing for me here. You had a series of experiences. I don't know whether you want to call them visions or dreams, or I'm just going to let you describe it. Tell us the background of this and tell us how these things came to be.
Okay, so let me just backtrack a little bit about my ancestry. A lot of Puerto Ricans have Indian blood. The Indians, they are from the Caribbean, are actually two types. The one called Taínos. The Taínos are actually a branch of the Arawak. They came out of the Brazil basin. And then there's the other Indians called the Caribs, and this is where the Caribbean gets their name.
Oh, okay.
I'm from the Taíno branch. And one of the things that this is an oral tradition in my family, that we had a lot of Indian, I guess, people that had visions. And this goes back quite a ways. And from what I understand, this is something in the family. It's actually typical of this line of the family to do that. I started having what you can call both visions and dreams since I was around 10 years old. So this is something that I've been having for quite a while.
And how do these visions and dreams come? Are they waking visions?
Well, let me make a distinction so people can understand which one is which. Myself, I consider a vision is something that I'm awake and happens while I'm awake. A dream happens when I'm asleep, and just like a dream, it could be a regular dream, and it happens, I could say, when I'm asleep.
Okay, all right, and so anyway, continue with your story there.
Well, and again, the very first one that I remember, there was just the whole lore in the Indian tribes is that they have two deities. And this is pretty typical for most Native American tribes. One is the god of good and the god of evil. And so the Tainos have that. The god of good is called Lord Yukiyu, and the god of bad is called Lord Huracan. Huracan is the name for a hurricane.
Oh,
so
I did not know that.
Yeah, so that's hurricane comes from the word Huracan, and it's associated. Hurricanes are always associated with the evil side of the godhoods.
Sure. Yeah.
And so how this all started is I was about 10 years old. My parents had a 1 acre, I guess, farmstead, I guess you could call it, up in the countryside, and we had our own animals. We grew a lot of plants, and I grew up listening to a lot of stories from the Indian side that talk about, Lord Yukiyu. And the curious thing was that right behind the house, there was a mountain called a Yunque, which is in the only rainforest in the U.S., federal rainforest in the U.S., and there's a peak called a Yunque, and the lore says that Lord Yukiyu has his throne up there.
Oh.
That's where. So for me, it was very common. I get up and go do my chores very early in the morning. Feed the ducks, the geese, the chickens, the goats. Make sure that if we had any horses in there, make sure that they have hay and a lot of other things. And as a kid, I was, you know how kids are, they daydream. I used to sit there sometimes and look at the mountain and just daydream about, Lord Yukiyu, what it would be like to meet him. Well, one day I was caught totally surprised, happened while I was watching the mountain. The only way I could describe it is the sky just scrolled off like a scroll, and there was a person that's sitting there. And you got to remember, I was only 10 years old, and I haven't seen very many American, mainlanders, what we call it. And this person sitting in what looked like a stone throne, had a beard, had a robe. He was looking away from me, and then he looked at me for a little while. And as you can imagine, a 10-year-old kid looking at this, I was just kind of, frozen in place, thinking, "Wow!" What? And to me, that was, this is Lord Yukiyu, as he's been described by other people. And he looked at me for a little bit and closed, and that was the really first one that I remember.
So just basically a vision of what you considered to be at that time, at least, God.
Yes, exactly. Okay. And I was Catholic at the time when this happened, and as you can imagine, that really firmed up my belief in God.
Sure.
From then on, I have no question that God existed. What that meant, other than that, I had no idea, and that comes later in life.
Okay. Now, that was, of course, your first experience, and you have, since that time, had other experiences, correct?
Yeah, I have quite a few of them. I'm trying to think. There's so many of them, and the book that I wrote, A Change Is Coming, I wrote some of them, the ones that I thought would be the people would want to listen, hear about.
Sure.
For example, I had let me see. One of them, it was right before we moved here. It was a really strange one to me because I didn't understand the context of it until now, and it was a dream. I was in the field, and there was a really large moon. I was probably, I would say about 14 when this happened. And there was a large blood moon there, and I didn't know what that meant at the time. And there was people climbing up the hill, and there was other personages clothed in white robes up there, up on the hill where the blood moon was, and there was something very shiny on the left. And that left an impression. And now I know what blood moons are. And so I don't know if that's symbolic or this literal, even to this day.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I do talk to a lot of people who have had similar experiences to yours over the years. And that seems to be fairly common, not really being able to, understand. Sometimes it takes years to understand whether something is literal or whether something is
yeah, and that's correct. There's one particular related to that specific one that I didn't know didn't know until recently. That's almost 40 years, actually a little bit over 40 years, that it took me to realize what was going on, what the different elements of it meant. Now I know what blood moons are, and so I understand a little bit what this is related about.
Yeah.
But you're right. Some of them take a long time to understand really what they are.
Okay. Now, you have published a book, and you mentioned this already, so I guess let's get into that. It is called A Change is Coming. And tell us, this is a compilation of some of the things that you have seen, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And this is the interesting part about it. I actually wasn't planning on writing the book. That was the furthest thing from my mind, and that's part of the reason why I'm kind of hard to get a hold of, because it's not something that I really want to talk about a lot. It's out, and I try to talk, try to be polite to people. But let me tell you how the book came about. It so happened that the publisher is actually the same publisher for Julie Rowe. His name is Chad Daybell.
Uh-huh.
Chad Daybell was living here in Springville, not too far from my house at the time. One night, he had a very strong impression that he needed to find me and tell me that I needed to write a book. I didn't know Chad at the time. So one night, he just shows up my door, I open up, and hello. He goes, hello, my name is Chad Daybell. You know who Julie Rowe is? And go, yeah, I know who she is. And she said, I'm her publisher. And I was like, oh, okay. So he came into my house, and we talked for about an hour and a half. And then after about an hour and a half, he told me why the reason he was there. At first, I was not really convinced that I really want to do this. But after a while, I realized that, yeah, this is probably I should do this. And so he came to my house for about 2 months. Every Thursday, he brought his laptop, interviewed me, and that's how the book came about.
Okay, so he helped you grind this thing out, and I know, by the way, that's a tough thing to do, to get a book out of you.
It is. It's very tough.
It's very hard to do. So, but you finally got it done, and he has published this book. It is called A Change is Coming. Once again, for those of you who are looking for this book, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on a lot of different outlets there. So, is it come in an ebook form? Do you know?
Is it what?
Does it have an ebook?
Yes, there's a Kindle version. It's the only ebook format that I know it's out right now.
Okay, he's got a Kindle version on that, so you can get it many different ways, and we'll mention that from time to time throughout the program. Now, this particular book, tell us what are some of the experiences that you relate to people there.
Well, I guess the biggest experience that I had is the one, and a lot of people are going to identify it with this. Even though I have received a lot of these dreams and visions since I was a little kid, I didn't think at the time that none of these things will happen in my lifetime. I was just somebody happy to be going on my life. I had a good job. I love my family. But one day in August of 2014, last year,
uh-huh.
I had something that happened while I was awake that really, really changed my mind. I was sitting in bed before going to work, and my surroundings started shaking, and my head is shaking so bad that I felt the top of my palate and my sinuses. I could feel the shaking, and I couldn't move. And I kept asking my wife, "What? Are we in an earthquake? Are we in an earthquake?" And she said, "No, we're not." And this lasted for about 8 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And so, as you can imagine, that really got my attention. And so I talked to my wife, and as I say, I'm LDS now. And so we prayed about it, and we both got a very strong impression that we needed to grab anything that could fall off the walls or the cabinets and take them down, and and make sure that the house is earthquake proof at the time.
Sure.
And through that, that's really a wake up call to me that all of these things that I've been reading about are actually going to happen in my lifetime. And the thing that the story doesn't stop there. It's something really remarkable happened, which I never heard anybody before that. And now I heard other people the same experience. It's for about 2 weeks after that. It was just like it was turned on. I look at different places. I'll be walking, driving, or just sitting someplace, and I superimpose on whatever I'm looking at. It will look like what would be earthquake damage. The only way I can describe it. And so, as you can imagine, it was really overwhelming experience to have that happen to me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine it would be at the very least overwhelming, and terrifying probably too.
Yeah. It was at first. I mean, I kind of got used to it after a few days, but it was very terrifying because that's not something that you normally see.
So you would, and not to put words in your mouth here, but would you say that for a while after that experience, the barrier, between the veil and earth was maybe thinned out a little bit?
I'll say it was thinned out quite a bit because these things are very clear. I mean, like I said, it took about 2 weeks before it faded out. And it didn't do the normal, where a lot of things like paint fades out over time. It just, one day it just completely shut. It will stay clear one time, for 1 minute, and next minute it was gone. In a way, I was pretty happy and very relieved that stopped because it was pretty hard to deal with.
I'll bet that's true. Okay, now let's get into some specifics here in just a moment, if you would. We have to take a commercial break, so if you can hang on for just a minute, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into some of the specifics of some of the things you've seen, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, and that'll be coming up right after this. We're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back. Time for lunch, and where do you go for lunch? Well, you head on over to the AC Drive.
Are you tired of bugs messing up your home, property, and life?
I'm going to tell you something. Somebody messes with me, I'm going to mess with him.
Do you want to put bugs in their place?
I want you to get him where he breathes. I want you to find him. I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground.
Then call the Hitman at Certified Pest Control.
Hey, Joey, did I not tell you just to do it? And I'm telling you, gotta do it.
Certified Pest Control can offer complete bug elimination at your home or business for only $39.95. Certified Pest Control will treat your property by power spraying a 6-foot wide barrier around your foundation, around doors and windows, under decks and in garages. A barrier that is completely safe for pets and people, but that will keep the bugs out for months. And Certified Pest Control will eliminate all the bugs that have already invaded your home. Call Certified Pest Control today at 312-5856. 312-5856. That's 312-5856 for Certified Pest Control.
You're very smart, Joey.
The AC Drive-In on Main Street in Burley, across the street from the Cassia County Fairgrounds, is serving up some fantastic lunch for you right now. Yeah, they've been serving up the same great meal ever since 1954, so you know they're doing it right. And it is just delicious. We went in there the other day. I had the new chicken fried steak sandwich. It was great. We've told you about that for the last few months. And my wife had a fish sandwich, a fish fillet sandwich, which was nice and crunchy on the inside and delicious on the outside, on the inside. And, oh, man, it was good. So stop in there. See why it is that people have been going in there for lunch for, I don't know, 62 years now? At the AC Drive-In on Main Street in Burley, across the street from the Cassia County Fairgrounds. Some delicious food being served up even as we speak.
Farmers, they're the lifeblood of America. The men and women who tackle the toughest jobs to put clothes on our backs and food on our tables. They might do it quietly, but their genuine values and tireless work ethic are an inspiration to us all. Some might say farming is a thankless occupation, so that's why we're taking the time to say thanks. Farm Bureau Financial Services, protecting what matters most.
I'm Eli Hansen with Farm Bureau, and I support the American farmer. In Burley, Idaho, call me Eli Hansen at 678-0431.
In southern Idaho, that's Eli Hansen. Call him at 678-0431. 678-0431.
Patterson's Audio and Video still has a few of those comfort furnaces left. So you're going to need to get in there and get these things. These have been a huge seller for the folks over at Patterson's Audio and Video for the last several years. But when these are gone, they're gone. So, don't waste your time. Get in there and check these things out. They will heat up any portion of your home to nice, comfortable living within just a few minutes, and it's all computer controlled, so it'll maintain the temperature that you set. It will maintain the conditions that you want, so it's going to save you a lot of money too. Patterson's Audio and Video also has some great stuff for Black Friday. They've got a whole shipment of TVs that are coming in right now. These are going to be ready for Black Friday, and you're going to be able to take advantage of those and save more than usual even though you always save money over at Patterson's Audio and Video on TVs, and you know that, but you're going to save even more this time around. So check with them for Black Friday specials as well at Patterson's Audio and Video, 421 East Main Street in Burley. That's Patterson's.
A white sport coat and a purple necktie, and then my wife's favorite dress. Her cardigan and a load of dress shirts, all cleaned with Sunrise finesse. Rupert has been trusting their dry cleaning to Sunrise Cleaners next to the post office for years. Bedding, coats, suits, sweaters, dresses, a shirt laundry, sewing, and zipper repair. Coy and Tammy Parton can make your clothes look better than when they were new with professional cleaning. Over 75 years in Rupert, it's Sunrise Cleaners. A white sport coat and a purple necktie. Sunrise is cleaning at its best.
Back once again on Radioactive. Welcome back to the program on this Conspiracy Theory Thursday. Now, the Conspiracy Theory Thursdays are, as you know, this is not what you would call hard news. This is stuff that, well, you can't prove, but very valuable in the kinds of information that you get out there. So we have with us today Hector Sosa, and Hector has written a book. The book is called A Change is Coming, and Hector has experienced dreams and visions, and he has compiled those into a book, and he's going to share them with us, right?
I'll try as much as I can.
All right. All right, Hector, give us some of the give us a sampling, if you will, of what we're going to find in the book. And the background there, too, if you could, please.
Sure. As far as the background of the book, I would say this. It was it never occurred to me to write a book. It was actually Julie Rose, publisher, actually came to my door, and he helped me write the book. Some of the sampling that you will find there. I'll talk about the invasion of the United States. I'll talk about members and non-members, people leaving out of cities to go out into what all the dreamers have had, which is refuge camps, or other people call them as tent cities. There's also things about the coming economic collapse. And then this means there's actually two events in the economic collapse. There's the stock market crash and the dollar actually crashing itself. There's two different events that happen. there's also a lot of the personal information there, a lot of, I don't want to say visitations, but I had several other encounters about that. Let me talk about one specific one.
Sure.
That really, you have people through lives that have what's called a pivotal moment. And there actually is a moment in their life where they pivot from where they were before into a different direction. And the me just start, and this is how it started. I was with my wife at the mall in Provo, the Provo Mall, and John McNaughton, who's a LDS painter, he had a store there right across from the movie theater, the Cinemark that's there. We walked in, and there was a painting called Peace is Coming. Let me explain to you what this painting is. This painting is a painting of Jesus Christ walking through a lot of soldiers from different eras. So you have soldiers all the way back out to, I'm trying to think, as far back, it's long be like the Egyptians. I guess it's the farthest back I remember seeing that. And so it goes the Romans, the Spartans. There were World War I, Napoleon. There were quite a few other the modern warriors here as well, both from the United States and from the other countries. And there were broken swords, and they were all either kneeling or standing out their arms. And that was did such an impression on me that I just stopped. Literally, I stopped when we stopped right in front of it, and my mind just. The only way I could describe it is my mind got a hold of it and didn't let go of that picture. And then this is what happened after a few weeks after that experience. I had a very interesting dream, and it's in the book, and it's more details in the dream, but I can get here. But this is what happened. I was in a dream, and at first I thought it was a symbolic dream, like a lot of dreams are. But then I realized that there was actually a lot more happening in there. I was in a house. There was what it looked like some sort of party going on. The lady at the house, I remember her wearing a red dress. And I follow her around because a red dress is very easy to follow around the crowd. And I remember noticing this gentleman who looked really scruffy and disheveled, and I was like, well, why is he doing here with all these people? And I watched him, but I kind of lost track of him. But he was wearing a beat-up green army jacket with all the patches removed, and he had wearing jeans and some sort of sneakers. He had a longish hair, longer than what you call military regulations, a lot longer than that. His beard, while it was a little bit long, was actually well trimmed. And I didn't look at his face very much because I thought he was out of place. Well, after a while, I noticed the lady coming to him, and I was fairly close by, and I heard the lady tell this guy, hey, we ran out of wine. We need to get more wine. And I was thinking, well, I don't drink alcohol. Why do we need wine here? But there something strange happened. Somebody brought like a coffee table, and on top of the coffee table, they put one of those plastic bins to fill it with water about halfway. I was on the other side of the bin, and I was scratching my head wondering what's going on. Why are they doing these really strange things? Well, the next thing I know, I'm watching the guy. He puts his hand in the water, going from far to close to him, and as I was looking inside of the bin, and as the wake of the water close, from his hand, the water changed from water to what it looked like either grape juice or wine. And I was very surprised, and I looked up, and he looked at me, and he said, everything will be all right. And I realized who that was at that time. I didn't pay that much attention until that, and as you can imagine, I was very, very surprised. I wasn't expecting that at all. And that's one of the pivotal moments that I had. That's probably, I would say, that's a key dream that I had right there.
Now, why would you say that was a pivotal moment?
Because I was going through such a hardship in my life. There was, I guess, there's some of those things where you just feel like you are hitting rock bottom. There was a time where, if I remember right, that was a time around 2001 where the dot-com the implosion happened. There was a stock market crash. I got laid off. I didn't find work for a long time. I could find like a 3-month contract, and I'd be out of work for 3 months. And then, so I didn't work the whole year. So we ended up losing a house. We losing one of the cars. And so we had to move to someplace else. And we were almost homeless for a little bit. So that was a pretty dark time in my life. And that's when that happened.
And how did that particular dream affect you going into the future?
Well, this is something that I always I never considered before was, then I heard this before, is that we have to make deity, the people we worship, more personal. When that happened to me, I realized that I was keeping them at a distance. And by that I mean that I will do my prayers like everybody does. I go to church. I do everything else, but I didn't really make an effort to getting to know them. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the closest thing I can describe it as. And when you see them that close, and I'm talking about this person is definitely a Jesus Christ person. There's no question in my mind who he was. When I realized that he will come to you personally to talk to me about my personal life, that really made an impact. I knew at that moment he cared, he knew me, and to me, immediately, that means that he knows everybody else. This is personal, he knows me, he knows everybody here in the earth. He knows who they are, he knows what sort of trials we're going through. And if we just let them in, they're talking to us all the time. We just have to stop life interfering with what the voices that we hear. And that's what I got from that. That's why my life changed, because I started I wouldn't say withdrawing from life, but not making the things here as important, materialistic things as important as they were before. I was able to put the messages that are being shared through life and through church into my heart better. For example, I have, this is something that I don't tell a lot of people, but I had a fairly high IQ. One of the problems that people with fairly high IQs have is we're not very empathetic. It's very hard for me and for a lot of my friends to feel charity. At least the ones who have very high IQ. It's something that comes with that particular aspect. And that's one of the things that I've been able to handle a lot better. I'm able to feel more empathetic to other people's suffering, and a lot of other attributes that you always wanted to be like Jesus Christ. There's a lot of these things like that I'm able to understand a lot better because of that experience.
Now you mentioned, and let's, I know the listeners are chomping at the bit to get to this now, but you mentioned visions of the future. Can you tell us how those came about, and can you share some of that with us?
Yeah, there's both visions and dreams, so they're both and both, half and half, I would say. So the one, I guess, is the most prominent out of all of them. There's two of them, I guess, that stand out to me through the book. Is there's the one where there's chaos here in the U.S., and there's foreign troops invade the U.S. That's one of them. The other one, it was so intense, or as well, was the economic collapse of the U.S. And those are the two of the biggest pivotal moments that I've seen. And I have talked to others that have had that very similar dreams and visions.
All right. Now this invasion of the U.S. What were the circumstances of you receiving that vision?
Well, there's actually a series of them, and one of the things that I want your listeners to understand is they don't come very clear. They come, the best word I can describe it, very jumbled. It's not like here's one topic and you get the specific topic and only about the topic. A lot of times they will have several different experiences, one after another, and you have to, the word I want to say is you want to investigate, you want to ponder, and try to pull out the ones that are similar and gather them together. Like one thing that we know from studying the Bible, it's that not everything is tidily set aside. There's different aspects of it. The topics are all across the different scriptures that you have to go out. Same thing with the dreams. They're not very tidy. I have in the book one example of that is the one about a warning for about the economy. That one it's very raw. I just did a dump of what I saw, and that's a very good way of people experiencing what I do experience. There was like 3 or 4 different things happening, one after another, information out of those. But so the invention. I didn't see what started it. What I did see was that there were 2 forces. There was the Chinese on the west and the different movements that they did to get in, and the Russians on the east coast. As far as the Chinese, they did different different probes, I guess is the word I want to use, where they came out from the south, from Mexico. They came from the Gulf of Mexico. They came from the north on the Pacific. And the way I can describe it is there were both times where I've seen it as a map, and I've seen movements of where they're going, what they were using, the routes that they're going through. And then other times we're actually on the ground watching what was going on the ground. And one of the times that I saw on the ground, something that I wasn't as surprised when I saw it, but I kind of figured this is one of the ways is I remember looking at I think it was like the Long Beach port where there's a lot of container ships. Well, there was it looked like there was things getting pulled out of the container ship, and when the containers opened, there was military equipment in there, and there was quite a bit of it. And I was really surprised that this equipment was able to make it online, because right now nothing like that could. There's no way that could happen right now. The security is too tight. And my dad is in the military in Air National Guard. My brother is also he just retired from the Army, and I have I'm the only male in my family that hasn't gone into the military, but I understand a lot of how that works.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's why I was surprised, and that gave me a clue that there was a lot of stuff going on at the time as far as the nation. That the nation was distracted somehow. Either there was some sort of other calamity happening, or that the military forces are either pinned down or they were neutralized. I don't know which one of the two was.
So in other words,
go ahead.
In other words, then something happens to leave many of our borders and ports unguarded, and that is the Chinese are there at least to take advantage of that confusion and come into the country.
And that's the thing that I did notice, that there wasn't a military response, at least not right away. And that's really surprised me, because that's not usually how the American military reacts to things.
Okay.
And as far as the Russian side, the Russian actually came out from the north, on the northern part, and I remember seeing that, I think it's Chesapeake Bay. They came through there, and that's how they disembarked. But their forces, they were a lot smaller than the Chinese. So it looked to me like something happened to them, and they might have had lost personnel and equipment before that invasion. But again, there was no military response, which was very surprising to me.
After the military comes into the country, what happens then?
Well, there were several different events, and this is the thing. I don't know what the sequence are for a lot of things, and I have no idea on the timing, but I do know that there was some sort of it looked like there were UN troops. And the reason I say UN troops, it was that they had the blue helmets at the UN. When the UN deployed troops from different countries, everybody wears the blue helmets and sometimes blue vest. And I saw the UN, the white UN vehicles, and they were APCs or armored personnel carriers. They had white and UN painted on them, and they were mixed in with the Chinese and the Russians. As far as that, there was also another thing that kind of I suspected happened was that I saw plagues as well. I don't know if it happened before or after the invasions, but this is a separate dream that was not tied to anything else. And I described the plagues. There was 2 specific plagues that are very apparent. I'm sure there's going to be more, but one of them had, the only way I can describe it is purple lesions. And they look like a web coming out of a central hub of the lesion, and they were purple. And several other people have described it as, I kind of think what it was. It's not chicken pox. What's the other one that people get?
Smallpox?
Smallpox.
Yeah.
That's right. It looked like some sort of weaponized version of smallpox. That's the best way I could describe it as.
Well, and we know from history, of course, that smallpox can be quite deadly if it,
the reason I know it's weaponized is because the way how fast people were dying. I remember walking, down the streets of several cities, and I'm certified. I'm on what's called the CERT program by FEMA, and one of the things that they teach you is how to mark houses in disasters. Well, one of the things that you mark is how many people are injured, how many are dead, how many are sick. Well, I remember it's basically an X, and then at the different spaces, there's 4 spaces that you could put numbers in. And I remember walking on the street, and the space that is for dead is actually fairly high. There's whole streets of just dead people, many, many dead. And when I remember hearing other people talking, they say, well, this thing, you get infected, you last about between 3 to 5 days, and then you die. There's very, very few people that actually survive that one. And there's the other one, which looked like, I think the way I can describe it is like chicken pox, but the blisters that came out had really, really thick pus in them. And they're very large, and they were all over the body. It's kind of the same thing as the first one. It just killed a lot of people.
So
and there were different cities that had different ones.
That actually sounds like bubonic plague. That's the way it presents.
Okay.
But I don't,
And I'm not, and I haven't investigated bubonic plague that much. I'm not that familiar with it. But again, I remember seeing that, and it was very. Those were very specific. I know that this through the disasters, also a lot of other ones, secondary diseases show up, like cholera, and I can't remember what the other names of the other ones were. There's always secondary things, but these were the primary ones. And I'm thinking that might have been part of the reason why the nation was in such chaos.
So the possibility is then that there is a genetically engineered bio attack, and that removes our ability perhaps to cope with something like
I do remember something now. I'm trying to go. I got my book here, but it's kind of hard to read and talk at the same time. There was one part where I remember seeing that looks like an Asian person who was in some sort of station. I don't know if it was a train or if it was a bus or airport terminal. But I do remember he having some sort of canister. There was a glass canister, and it had 2 caps, at the end. And he's just walking. He opened his jacket. He's wearing a long coat. So imagine it's either fall or winter. And he grabbed it and dropped it. And that's how it started in one of the cities. And that's how it spread. From what I understand, there's other people that I talked to, there's actually several other cities that are going to have the same thing.
Wow. Yeah. And do you Well, I'll tell you what, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So we are, and then, of course, we don't have an archived podcast of the show either. And this, if it works out, we will also have an archived podcast so that after the program is over every day, and if there are parts that you missed, or if you can't listen to it while it's on, you can always listen to the program later. So anyway, Hector Sosa is our guest on the program today. And Hector, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Well, you gave us some fairly disturbing information last hour, so let's take a look at some of that stuff. Last hour you talked to us about an invasion of the United States. Can you give us any idea as to the aftermath of these things?
You know, I don't know a whole lot about... I do know one thing, though. I do know from the different things that have been shown to me that there's going to be a group of people that's going to rally. I guess the resistance is the best word I could think of. There's going to be people who still support the Constitution of the United States, and they're going to rally together and they're going to push out the invaders. And the God is going to be on their side, and the God is going to, once they do this big push to push out the invaders, God is going to quickly take over and get the fight done in a very, very fast fashion.
Okay, so, we always use the term God bless America, and you're saying quite literally in this particular case, he does bless the American people to rescue them from this foreign invasion.
Yes. So let me give you a little bit of that. This is very personal about this particular aspect of it.
Sure.
There was one particular time where I was in the middle of a war zone. And I don't think very many people have heard this one. It's not in the book. But I was in the middle of a war zone. There was what they call the fog of war. There was a lot of... I know that this particular ones that are not symbolic, they're actually literal. It's because all your senses are engaged. I remember very clearly because there was smoke. There was I heard artillery, and that's I know the different sounds of what the different artillery sound like. There's mortars. There was howitzers. I think called the 155 millimeter ammunition. They're falling down, and I felt dirt landed on me. The explosions knocked me down several times, and I do remember seeing, through the clouds of the ammo blowing. Because there's a lot of shots being fired. There's full automatics going off. There's hunting rifles, 30-06. There were AR-15, M16s. There was a lot of different types of rifles. Russians. And I don't remember what the Chinese use right now, but some of the weapons that I didn't recognize what they were. But there was a lot of fire going on. And I remember hearing being behind what I looked like a tree stump. Well, a tree that got knocked over, and I was behind a stump, and I remember the ground shaking from all the artillery. And I remember there was a rally, somebody behind me going, forward, forward, forward. And I remember turning around, and there was other people that recognized that they were there, and we were just going forward. It was so fast that I didn't have time to look at my weapon that I had in my hand, and I had some sort of backpack, and I was going forward with the rest of the people. And I knew that was one of the battles that we were fighting. And I didn't see who the enemy was, but I suspect it's probably either Chinese or the Russians. And that's the reason why I know that this is going to be us. They're going to be out there, and it's people in the West. The West has been prepared. The Rocky Mountains have been prepared for a place of refuge for a lot of people. And the armies that come in are not going to be able to find a lot of people that are out there. And when the time comes, we're going to come out, and it's going to be our turn to take them out.
Wow, That's impressive and encouraging, I guess, in a way. Do you? And I doubt that you know this, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just because I'm
Sure.
personally curious. But this all has to happen, in my opinion, anyway, before you ever have the plague outbreak or anything like this. I mean, you've got something political going on. There's got to be a political aspect to this, in other words.
Yes, and actually I do know some of the several people that I talked to. There's a lot of people out there that have a lot of experiences, but they have not made anything public. And I know I talked to hundreds of people. And one of the interesting things that I have, as far as the political aspect of this, is that everybody seems to see that Obama is the last sitting president. Let me make that very clear. By that I mean when the sitting president is, and normally when the election happens in November, you get the time until January. January, it's when the new presidency gets inaugurated. And there was, from what everybody has seen, everybody sees different pieces of it, is that Obama is the last sitting president, meaning he's the last president that's actually in the White House. It looks like there's going to be an election and a new president sitting in, but this president is not going to be able to actually sit in the White House. That's when everything just falls down. So knowing the different aspects of the elections, we know that elections happen in November. So I'm guessing something happens between December and January that stops whoever's supposed to be there to get into the office. What that is, I have no idea.
Wow. So sometime between the time that the election is actually held and the time when the new president would assume office, something happens.
Yeah, and there's different versions of this that different people have done different things. One of the ones that I found really interesting when I was talking to this person was there's actually about 4 different people have the same experience. And they were walking down the hallway in the Capitol, in the White House, and there's an area where you have all the presidents, pictures of the president actually there.
Right.
I've never been there, but I have seen pictures of this. There's the last president when people are walking. There was a picture of Obama as the last president, and then there was no pictures after that. And there's actually the wall was knocked down at that point. There's nothing there. So like the whole wall afterwards, it was actually in ruins.
Wow.
And that's very symbolic to me that seems like the whole structure of the government just kind of fell down.
Yeah, that's terrifying. That's terrifying. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, I'll tell you this. I haven't lived here in the United States, in the stateside, I should say, for about 30 years now. I have no doubt that the Americans are pretty tough people. Especially people here in the Southwest, they're gonna do just fine, even though the government might be falling apart around the feds disappeared, and a lot of different groups claiming that they are the rightful leaders. I think that the people out here are gonna know what to do, and they're gonna survive just fine until the time that they're actually called to come out and reestablish the republic.
So you're telling me then that it is more essential than ever, perhaps right now, to make sure that we have food storage and things like that?
Yeah, and this is the other thing that I wanted to let your listeners know. It's just like a lot of the other people that have these things. We want to tell people that since I'm LDS, that you have to follow our leaders. Yes, some of my stuff that I've seen is fantastic, I guess, over the top and amazing. But that's not the point to a lot of these things. The point is that we are being warned, just like in other ages, there's always other people like me who come out and warn others. and has been going on for thousands of years. And it's always important to follow your leaders at that time. And that's what I'm trying to let people know. And let me tell you something, a very, very distinctive dream that I had, that I woke up and I told my wife immediately about it, that let me know that our leaders are inspired and they're chosen specifically to lead us. And this is got to do, I don't know if you have a lot of non-LDS in your audience, but let me give you a little bit so people understand.
Yeah.
There's a structure that we have called a stake. It's not the steak that you eat, but the steak that you hammer down in the ground. And this is an organization where you have, under each stake, you have what's called wards. Wards, which in other churches are congregations. On the stake level, there's what's called a stake president. I had a dream about him, and this is what happened. I remember just being in the church, the chapel that we go to, sitting there. We're sitting in the pews in the right-hand side, and there's in front of me. That's where the Aaronic priest sits there to do pass the sacrament. It looked like the sacrament already passed because there's nobody sitting up there, and the stake president is standing in the pew talking. While I was watching there, my wife and a couple of my kids were there. I was looking up, and to the right-hand side, there was this person that literally just stepped out of the air. And I took a close look at who this person was, and he had a beard, longish hair, he's wearing a robe, and he's wearing sandals. And I was extremely surprised because I wasn't expecting that. And the stake president, he was talking, he didn't notice him. It took him a moment to realize there was somebody there on the other side of him. And he turned, and I remember that this personage walked up to him, and he kneeled down in front of him, and the person had got him by the shoulders and pulled him up and put his right hand on his shoulder and said something like, I was too far away to tell what it was. And this person can turn around, walk down the stairs, and walk right in front of me. And that's when the dream ends. And to me, that was a very, very clear indication that my stake president was chosen by him. And by him, I mean Jesus Christ. And so I had several experiences there about our church leaders. And I'm a very staunch supporter of our leaders, and I stand and I follow what, they have counseled us. And one of the things they have counseled us to do is food storage. If you study food storage, the history behind it, it's been about 158 years that the church has tell the members to get your food storage. In the beginning, it was 7 years. Then it was lowered, I believe, to 3 years. And then it was 2 years. Then for a while, it's been 1 year. And now the church leaders are actually pushing to, at the very least, have 3 months. So it's something that's been told repeatedly for many, many years.
Sure. I mean, you got to start somewhere, and 3 months is a good place to start.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I've often, this is one of the things that we talk about on this program quite a bit is food storage. And, I've told people, get what you can. If you can only get a couple of weeks worth, at least get that. I mean, that's...
Yeah, exactly. It's better than nothing. If you get caught somewhere, if all of a sudden we don't have, say, for example, that the oil prices go up really high, and that means that a lot of trucking companies are not going to be able to function under that. The cities of any size only have about 3 days worth of groceries in their stores. Even places like Costco might have maybe 5 days worth. So if you have something to help you there, while order is restored, that you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And it very well could save your life, and not just, and maybe we need to remind people of this from time to time, not just the food itself, but the fact that you don't have to go out and find it. That alone might save your life.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have to,
there's going to be a lot of desperate people.
Yeah, if you have to go into a situation where you have desperate people searching for food, and you're one of them, you know, that could be very, very deadly to you. So, you know, if even if you just have enough food to stay off the streets for a few days, that might be all it takes to save your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I agree.
Now, you mentioned that you saw these invasions coming into the United States. I think you just mentioned very briefly something about camps. Could you tell us about that?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about these camps.
About those?
Yeah.
You know, this is what the interesting thing is. I saw what happened here for my steak. My steak is a Dry Creek steak. It's here in Springville. And I didn't see anybody else. But the interesting thing was that I saw the preparations that happened here at the steak center, at the chapel where we meet. And we drove off for a while, but I didn't see what the destination was. The other experiences that I had was that I was actually in the different camps, but I had no idea where they were. I have some general hints that I talked with other people. And for example, one thing that I do know is from reading about what other people's experiences is the San Pete Valley down here is supposed to be a place of refuge. Even Brigham Young has talked about it, about that whole area being a area where there's going to be a lot of people moving there, a lot of tents, a lot of temporary buildings being put up, and a lot of people moving there when things start going down.
So, you know, we often hear of maybe two different kinds of camps.
Yes.
And these are, say, you know, the first type are places genuinely designed for refuge, to, you know, temporary housing for people and stuff like that. And then, of course, we also hear about the evil kinds of camps, if you will, where people are taken as prisoner. What did you see there?
Well, I've seen three different kinds, and you have the first kind, and which actually have been prepared for that. The second type, well, I guess fourth type if you put the one you just mentioned. But the first type is the one where there's facilities in place for a large number of people, and there's buildings, warehouses, and some of them even have infrastructure that's still intact. Meaning, by that I mean water and electricity. Not everywhere you're going to have that, but some of the larger ones will actually prepare for that. There's the second tier camps are the ones from people who did not listen at first, or they are from other faiths and they decided to band together. The third type of camp that I saw were like, how do you call those? Observation post.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way I can describe it. I remember being in one of them where there was people with military outfits, and one of the things that I recognized in this particular room was that they had what's called when you're on a sniper team, in depending what military branch you're in, you have a spotter and then the actual sniper. Well, I remember seeing the spotter scopes there, and I recognized immediately what they were. And they were still what's called a hunter blinds, and the spotters were inside the hunter blinds, and there were snipers by the spotters. And I remember that very clearly. And that's the third type. The fourth type, I wouldn't even call them a camp. They're more like, well, I guess you can call them concentration camps.
Well, yeah, exactly. And
that's the best way to describe it. There a lot of those were actually out closer to the cities, and I've seen some of them out towards Tuela, some of them out there. And different people I've talked to, in different kinds. The ones that I saw, they're more like holding pens, but the people there, they were very tall, had the cement walls. They're like octagonal in shape, meaning they have like 8 sides. They had very, very tall walls. They had barbed wire at the top. Just think at the prison down here and how they have the really tall fences and the barbed wire on top.
Right.
But instead of it being a fence, it was actually a cement wall. That's what I remember being an opening, and I remember people getting. Remember this clearly being standing inside one of them. I saw the very large door open, and black vans pulling up what I could see from inside, and actually people were grabbed from the vans and thrown in. There was nothing inside. There was no beds. There was no latrines or any other facility, no water, nothing. So there was basically dirt in there, and people just shoved in there. And I remember they were just being there, and people were just dying left and right in there. And they actually, the people who were in those were, I guess, political prisoners. I guess the closest word that I have for them. There were people who were related to any of the people that they were, I guess, were considered by the government to be rebels. I guess the closest word I could think of.
Rabble rousers.
Anybody who's, yeah, rabble rousers is a good word.
Yeah.
And they were identified as family members, and they're thrown in there. And part of the reason they're doing it is because there's a broadcast going on. They were actually sending out radio for radio stations saying, hey, we got your family members here. If you want them to live, come down and turn yourself in.
Wow.
I was not. But
I know that you and I have never met, but was I in there? Because I think that's where they're going to put me right there.
I don't know you. I don't know if you were there or not, but I did recognize quite a few people there.
Well,
that I know.
If you see, if next time if you ever see a vision like that, look around for me. I'll be the fat guy with the microphone. So.
Okay.
Okay. Well, and that has always been something. I'm not going to say something I fear, but something that I always recognize is at least a possibility when you do what I do is make somebody mad. And
yeah. Well, exactly. And I know I'm making a lot of people mad. I mean, I'm pretty outspoken in social media myself. And I already know that I'm on some sort of list. I actually seen the list. There's the top level list, I believe it's called the blue list. I'm not on the top level. That's for people like Glenn Beck. But I know there's like a yellow list and a black list. And I think I'm in the yellow one. And I don't know what the black list is.
Yeah, I don't know either, but
it's like.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
No, I was just gonna say the reason I know about this is because I pay attention, and also there's a lot of information out there that if you really start looking and digging into things, you're gonna find. Plus, people come in private, tell me things. So I know different things like that.
Yeah.
So it's not that hard these days to kind of figure out what's going on. Now, if you pay attention, there's actually a lot of stuff in the open.
Right. Well, and that's true. And that's what I'm always telling people. You don't need me. Yeah. Most of this stuff you can find just simply by knowing a few strategies on the internet, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of
exactly. And I mean, there's even declassified documents that you can go from the Freedom of Information Act that you can go out and look for stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Now, I've got to take a break here, so if you'll hang on for just a moment, I will do that.
Absolutely.
And then we're going to be back with more in a moment. Don't go away. All righty. We are back once again on Radioactive. Welcome back to the program. Our special guest on this Conspiracy Theory Thursday is Hector Sosa. And he is telling us about a series of dreams and visions that he had that foretell the future and, at least his interpretation of what he saw. Now, Hector, when you see these things, do you ever come away from this, like, absolutely terrified at what you've seen?
All the time. I mean, especially the ones that are really, really intense, like the one I was talking about when I was on the battlefield. That's probably one of the most terrifying ones because you can actually smell the corda. When you fire weapons, we have weapons in my house, by the way. When you fire weapons, there's a cloud of expended gunpowder, and there was so much of it that, and these things are so loud. A lot of people don't realize how loud it is when you have 30, 40, or 50 weapons going off at the same time, and then the other mortars and the howitzers, and it's everything shaking, and you can barely stand. And it's like I say, a lot of these experiences are very, very intense, and terrified quite a bit.
And later on, after you've had these experiences and you had time to digest them a little bit, does the meaning become more clear as time goes on?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is like something that I have learned, not just from you, but I get to talk to quite a few other people, and quite a few, I mean several hundred that I talk with. This, the closer you get to an event, the more information and the more clear things become. That you can tell that this particular event, it's just, imminent.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting about a lot of these experiences.
Well, and that was my next question to you. How imminent do you think these things are?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question again?
Exactly how imminent? I mean, do you have, I know you did mention that no busts or portraits of the president appearing in the hallway of the White House.
Yeah.
So does that mean that we're looking at a year here?
That's, like I say, I don't know, because I never get, hardly ever do I get a sense of timing, or do I get shown like the trees or any other thing that will indicate the season. But the thing is, we know how our elections work here, and we know that the elections happen in November. Our next election in 2016. November 2016, the new president gets inaugurated in January 2017. So that particular aspect, I'm thinking that's probably when it's going to happen. As far as being short, I don't know. I only know that they're going to happen.
Okay. Now, here's another question. I've asked others in the past, and I get varying answers on this.
Okay.
So I'm going to, just going to kind of feel you out on this thing. You are familiar with the story of Jonah, right? In the
yes,
in the scripture. Most people just remember that he gets swallowed by either a fish or a whale, depending on whether you're reading the New Testament or the Old Testament. There's much more to the story of Jonah than that, and I've always thought that the story of Jonah was kind of inspiring in a way, because in that. The reason he gets swallowed by the fish in the first place, or whale, depending on, again, your version here, is because he refuses to go to Nineveh and to warn them about what's going to happen to them if they don't repent. And so then he finally gets, he gets swallowed by the fish. He takes off. He goes to Nineveh. He preaches the repentance just as he has been ordered to do. And then something surprising happens, which really doesn't happen anywhere else in the scriptures. The people actually repent. They actually say, okay, well, we don't want this stuff to happen to us. So, we repent. We're going to turn back to God. And then of course, Jonah is mad about that.
I was gonna say about that. That's one aspect a lot of people seem to forget or gloss over. That Jonah was actually mad that people. I'm guessing he just wanted something to happen.
Well, this was basically what he said to the Lord. He says, "You sent me over here to tell them that all these disasters are going to happen, and now they're not going to happen. What's up with that?" And so that's my question to you. Are these things inevitable, or is it possible that we could avoid them through repentance?
The possibility is always there. However, from what I'm seeing and the way people are behaving, I doubt it.
Okay, so maybe that's the best you can do, but so one of the other things about that is that it appears in the scriptures anyway, that there gets to be a time when it's just too late, where you've had your chance, you had your shot, and now the time to repent has gone. Have we reached that point?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. There was a lot of expectation, myself included, with the whole thing with the blood moons and what Jonathan Kahn been talking about, the Shemitah. Now, something interesting that a lot of people don't know or haven't studied about that is that the Kingdom of Judah, they actually have a very, very similar process. They had blood moon shown to them several times, not just once. They had several periods of Shemitah. And then there was the last period before they were taken away, where nothing happened financially. Like there's no when the Shemitah happens, there's a financial release. So there's this one period right before, I can't remember which, it's either Babylon or Assyria, I can't remember which one of the two kingdoms, empires came in and just destroyed that part of the kingdom and took him captive. And we're kind of like in the same situation. There was the last two cycles. We have the stock market crash in 2001, and then there's another 7-year period and another stock market crash in 2008. If that pattern would have continued, it would have happened in September of this year, but a lot of people, then nothing happened. There was a lot of other events that happened, but there was no stock market crash. To me, that tells me that the time for warning is past. And because this didn't happen, there's something worse in store for us. And that's kind of how I'm interpreting a lot of these things.
Do you have any sense whatsoever of, and I'm kind of backtracking a little bit to the political here again, but do you have any sense whatsoever of what the political situation is that leads to these disasters?
There are so many different things. The feds, actually, there's different groups of leaders here in the U.S., actually U.S. in the world, have created so many situations that can push. All it needs is just a little push and things are going to fall down. I mean, you got to look just on the economic side. You have the junk bonds. You have the derivatives. You have the stock market is overinflated right now. The dollar is in a bubble. The real estate is in a bubble. And now you start going through several other things. Now, how our liberties are being curbed here in the United States. You have the destabilization forces that are happening in the Middle East. They're now actually following everything into Europe. The whole thing with Paris a few days ago. That's then you have the bankruptcy in Greece. You have Spain, Italy, and France that the cusp of the economy is falling, through the ground. China has their economy is going, in the tank. It fall down quite a bit. So there's a lot of things going in globally. Costs, it doesn't take very much to one of them to push our economy or somebody else's economy, and it's going to cause a domino effect through the whole world. Well, one of the things that I was talking to a couple of friends of mine that we talk about this quite a bit is we're comparing the year 2001 with what's happened now. Right now, I don't see anything that obvious that can push the economy, because we had 1,000-point drop one day in 1 week on the Dow Jones index, and that didn't push the economy down. So, but if you follow what happened in 2001 when the Twin Towers were taken down, the stock market closed. Then when it came back up, the stock market tanked completely. Now, if you think about it today, we're kind of in the same situation. We have terrorists who are openly declared that they're going to target 2 American cities. That is Washington, D.C. and New York. There's been a lot of chatter if you talk to anybody in the intelligence community, they'll tell you that, if they will tell you, some of them won't talk, that there's a lot of chatter going on right now. They're talking about an attack here in the U.S. Now, if you think about it, and I don't want anybody to panic, I just want people to